Hello everybody, welcome to online church this morning. I'm so glad that we get to be together today. If you haven't met me before, my name is Ellie. On a Sunday morning I work with the teenagers, and through the week I'm often at the front counter helping you check into a gym class. Let's have a look now at what's coming up this week. If you're part of a team anywhere at Goodlife, then make sure you come to our team night this Tuesday, the 6th of September. It'll be upstairs in the seminar rooms, and we look forward to seeing you there. On Wednesday, the 7th of September, the men are having a bonfire and braai up in the top car park. Bring some meat to throw on the braai and go ahead and register for that using the QR code on the screen. Coming up then on Thursday, the 8th of September, is Are You OK Day. You guys, it's always important, no matter what day it is, to ask the people around you, are you okay? But we set aside this day to remind ourselves to do it. This year at Goodlife, we're having a special seminar at 10 a.m. about the 5 ways to well-being, as well as fundraising events happening throughout the day. We'd love to see you at the center to support such a good cause. As always, if you want to connect, get involved, or share a story with us, then go ahead and fill out the Connect, Contribute, and Celebrate form by scanning the QR code on the screen now. As you may or may not know, this is Ryan's last week as a full-time pastor here at Goodlife. He's taken a role with the organization Compassion, and we'll be starting that in a couple weeks. You'll still see him around. He'll still speak here and in the in-person gatherings from time to time. But for now, we just want to take a couple minutes and honor the role that he had here. Let's have a look at some of the things he's said to us in the past.
Down speed.
Rolling. Up a little bit higher.
Yep.
Welcome to online church. We're so glad that you are engaging with us in this space. And I just fed the fire and made it incredibly smoky. Mm. Mm. Oh, it's beefy, carroty. Haven't had a T-bone in a while. Oof. There's nothing wrong with the way I read the Bible as a 13-year-old. I loved the Old Testament and the stories, and there's beauty there still. But it points us to Jesus. It points us to the mightiest person who's ever lived is a man who laid his life down for us.
And then a wink. A wink is the actual Easter egg at the end. And he's out, and he's out, and he's out.
God, I pray that this peace that you offer and this peace that you bring would find a place in our hearts today.
We genuinely have journeyed so much of that together.
Welcome. From whenever and wherever you're joining us this morning, we're so glad that you're with us. Yeah. The message is clear. We're grateful, and we thank God that you're here with us too. I hope you have a great week.
I'm just gonna clap.
Yep.
Oh yeah, let's get that. Both good?
Peter is me. Peter is you, right? We are all on this journey of becoming who God designed us to be, and there are things about our humanness that need to mature, that need to become all that God designed them to be. Some time meditating on those Psalms. Go ahead and send them in. You stupid little bird.
That's all right. Well, we're on a roll.
This thing that was exciting and daunting and unknown, and there was, oh, thank you. You're welcome. Right, but I like these movies where it's it's so obvious, the good versus the evil, right? Like Star Wars. It was a long time ago in a Galilee far, far away. I'm here all week, folks. What do I want to do? Be with us? What is that? It's like a blower. You see, each gospel tells the story of Jesus from a different perspective. Have you ever wondered why there's 4 gospels and 3 of them are incredibly similar and one is wildly different, right? There's a reason for that. Each gospel is written to a specific group of people, and it's making a specific claim and point about Jesus. Yeah. Hey everybody, thanks for joining with us today on Online Church. Is it Jazz Hands? Okay, Jazz Hands. This beatitude invites us to move from avoiding pain to facing what is difficult in our lives. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. May we face our pain. May we sit and weep. May we wait for comfort and healing and walk in the way of lament. I could do the lawnmower. No, this is not the lawnmower. This is the sprinkler. The lawnmower is this one. What am I saying? What am I saying? The clap for.
Today we continue our Deep and Wide series. We'll be hearing from Mike in just a minute, but first we're going to go into a space of worship. So take this time to really prepare your hearts for all of the things that Mike has to say to us.
You took my sin to a cross, laid my shame into a grave. You gave your life to find the lost, in exchange and love, mercy and grace. You are holy, you are worthy of my own. You are holy, glorified forevermore. this life I travel through be all about you. All about you are always good. Let this life I travel through be all about you. In the seasons, through the change, it's only your word that will remain. My assurance, my only gain is in Jesus, the greatest of names. You are holy, you are worthy of my You are holy, glorified forevermore. You alone You are always You are always Let this life I travel through be all about you. You are always good. Let this life I travel through be all about you.
Well, it's great to be with you. We're in the next part of our series, Deep and Wide, and I'm really excited to be able to share this week on our lounge environment and what that means and what it looks like. So if you haven't seen any of the messages up until this point, we've been asking the question, what does it mean for us as a community to go deep in our faith and go wide in our expression of love and invitation to people in our community or that come through Goodlife in any different way, how we can welcome them and create a place of hospitality and understand that people are on different stages of their journey in life and in their faith. And that we need to not just have one space that is a one size fits all for everyone, but understanding that there are different environments that help people at the different stages of their journey and their relational journey with both people, but also with God. And so we've been using this image, which is going to come up next to me at the moment, to describe the fact that in the neighborhood, our responsibility as Goodlife is to love our neighbor. Jesus invites us to love our neighbor as we love ourselves, to express his love and grace in the community wherever we go. And as we build relationship with people, we get the opportunity, if we're using this metaphor of home, to say to people, hey, why don't you come and be a guest in our faith home, in our community, somewhere at Goodlife. And Goodlife has so many different foyer environments. We were saying last week that a foyer environment is basically anywhere where anyone could turn up because they've seen something on our website, or they've turned up to our gym, our swim school, a church service, a youth program, a young adults program. And when they come along, they turn up for the very first time, we see them as our guests. And we want to make sure that they feel welcome and that we create a place of hospitality where they're accepted, and we help them in the most basic things like to know where to go and that it's okay to ask questions. We don't want people's experience to be when they come along to Goodlife to be that they came along and they felt weird and like not welcome, and we were all about doing what we do, and we missed the fact that a guest has walked into our community or a space that's really familiar to us. And so we were unpacking what does that look like. So if you haven't heard that, go back, listen to last week's message on the foyer. And this week we're talking about what does it mean when we help people go from being a guest in a foyer environment to finding friendship or community in our lounge environment. And that's the metaphor we're going to be talking about today. I'm sitting here in a lounge room, and the lounge room is so often the place where we sit down and we get to hear people's stories. We talk about things that we're interested in, we find out about people. And so to kind of use that metaphor, we want to create, and we already have them, but we want to really be able to identify what are the lounge environments that we have at Goodlife, and how do they help people facilitate or discover friendship and community. Now, as a few examples, and you're going to hear about one of these in a few minutes when we hear a story from both Greg Forrest and another family in our church, but we have so many different environments that are lounge environments. Examples of these would be our men's night. We often gather around the fire, or we go out somewhere and we hang out, and it's a great, easy place to invite someone who's maybe turned up to Goodlife for the first time. And I literally did this. I met someone who came along to our swim school, and then they came along to one of our men's nights, and I was able to, befriend them and keep inviting them to environments like that. And in their journey of life, they're not ready for something deeper than that at this stage. They're not inquiring about other aspects of things. They're just looking for community and friendship. And that is a really valid and important aspect of people's experience of life, but the way that we actually express our faith in making safe places for people to come and find friendship and community. But we have so many of these across Goodlife. A lounge environment may actually take place at the same time as a foyer environment. As an example, you may come along to a church service on the weekend for the very first time, and that's a foyer experience for you. You're coming in, and hopefully you'll be greeted as a guest and made to feel welcome. But then at the same time, we would then invite you to go to our guest lounge after one of the services, where it's the chance to meet some of our team. We've created a new to Goodlife lunch, where you can come along and meet our leaders, and we can have a meal together, and we get to know who you are and you get to know a bit more about us. So that's an example of how we're intentionally trying to create lounge environments that help people move from just being a guest or not known in a community to actually finding a place of community and even friendship. One of the reasons why this is so important is because one of the big problems we have in our society and culture, and this has not been new to today, this is throughout history, but has been this whole issue of disconnection, loneliness, people feeling isolated, and maybe they've been hurt in community or some environment before, and so because of the hurt they've experienced in that place, it's a really big thing for them to re-enter into a place of community. I want to read to you from the writings in the Old Testament of Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and the second part of this passage is often one that you'll be perhaps familiar with because we hear this a lot at weddings. But this is the passage that I want to read, and I want to highlight what the writer of Ecclesiastes says. And this is commonly referred to as wisdom literature. It's this kind of reflection on the way life is. Similar to the Proverbs, it's not absolutes, but it's more reflections on generally the way life works. And so Solomon, who's traditionally attributed to being the author of Ecclesiastes, has kind of reflected back on life and writes these really fascinating insights. And here's what some of them are. Ecclesiastes 4 verses 7 and 8, the writer says, "I turned my head and I saw yet another wisp of smoke on its way to nothingness." Or another way, he says this in other translations, is another chasing after the wind. Everything seems meaningless. And he says, and this is his reflection, "A solitary person, completely alone, no children, no family, no friends," which for some of our listeners, by the way, that sounds like bliss at the moment. But he says here, "Yet working," so this is the context, they're working their guts out. They're working obsessively late into the night, compulsively greedy for more, and never bothering to ask, "Why am I working like a dog?" never having any fun. And who cares? Solomon says, more smoke. This is a bad business. Now, in the New Living translation of this passage, it goes on and says a very familiar part, which, as I said, often gets quoted at weddings. He goes on and he says, two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together in bed, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. And then he says the classic line, a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. So when Solomon is talking about this particular passage of scripture, he's talking about the fact that it's very easy in life to get so busy chasing after whatever it is we think, whether it's the pursuit of work or our career, it could be a hobby that we have, but whatever it is, he's kind of highlighting the point that what's the point of us working so hard only to find ourselves disconnected from what matters most in life? And that is relationship, being in community with others, knowing that when life gets tough, we're actually not doing it alone. We actually have people to help us, to support us, to lift us up when we're struggling. To understand that as we navigate the mystery and the complexity of life, there's actually a community of people around about us that are there to support us. And for us to do this really requires for us to invest in this kind of relationship, to invest in community. Henry Nouwen, the famous Catholic priest who has written some extraordinary books, he has a statement that I find really challenging. He says, community is the place where the person that you least want to live with always lives. And when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, that is so true. What often happens is when we move from a place, using the metaphor we're speaking about, from being a guest in the foyer to finding friendship in a lounge room, it's actually a step that requires a level of risk. And for some of us, that risk is a small risk because we may have an idealized view of what community and friendship is going to look like. For others of us, we've maybe tasted of this as being not as easy as some would expect, or maybe you've had a tough time finding friendship or community. But what I find fascinating is that Henry Nouwen highlights the fact that community is the place where the person that you least want to live with always lives there. He's kind of basically saying there are some people that we find really difficult to do life with, and when we engage in community, we are bound to find someone like that. Now, sometimes I'd even admit we may even be that person. Sometimes we see things in ourselves in community that we go, oh my goodness, I do not like that part of me when I'm in community. And so the tendency or I suppose the invitation that we give ourselves is, all right, I'm going to bail out, I'm going to go out of this and I'm not going to engage. But Scripture and the life of Jesus is the invitation for us to actually engage in community. We see this right from the beginning of creation. The image even of the Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is one of community. And we're made in the image of God to reflect that loving community that we see and that harmony and oneness that we see in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Jesus invites us into community. Jesus invited his disciples into community. It wasn't just about learning information, it was about learning to live together and to actually live out the way of Jesus. Jesus says a really interesting thing to his disciples in John chapter 15, verses 15 to 17, he says, I no longer call you servants. He's speaking to his disciples. Because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. Now this is a radical thing because a rabbi or a teacher of the law would not normally call their disciples friends. But he's highlighting the fact that he's calling them into relationship. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. And this is my commandment. Love each other. Love one another. This is what Jesus is inviting his friends into. To live out the mandate or the command of Jesus to love one another, you can't do that in isolation. You have to do that amongst other people. Now, you can love yourself, but to love one another involves the commitment to say, I'm going to engage in community with other people. So one of the challenges that we have is that when we move from this place of being a guest to saying, all right, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to, find friends. I'm going to invest in community. I'm going to move into a lounge room space. I'm going to go to something at Goodlife that actually creates the opportunity for me to experience community, is that there is a risk in that. There is a risk that you may turn up to one of these environments and it might not be amazing. You might turn up and you might meet some people that you think, oh my goodness, they're a little bit much, or they're not the most amazing people. And sometimes we have an idealized picture in our mind of what community or what church is. And I often think that we have to think of this in terms of when we enter into relationship, it's a little bit like when you go to a shopping center and maybe like one of those fashion warehouses where they have discounted clothing because there's something wrong with the clothing. And you go there and when you're going to buy this t-shirt or this jacket, you're going to look at it and you're going to go, I wonder what's wrong with it. I actually had this happen to me on the weekend. I took my daughter to the shops and I saw a t-shirt in a shop of a favorite brand of mine. And I went and tried this t-shirt on. And when I was looking in the mirror, I went, something does not look right with this t-shirt. And I walked out and I realized that the sleeves of the t-shirt were actually out of whack. And I thought, I wonder if that's the fashion or that's actually a mistake. So I went to the shopkeeper and I said, hey, is this sleeve meant to be shorter than this other sleeve? And she looked at it and she went, oh no, that's going to have to go into, we're going to have to sell that cheaper. That goes to a certain area. And it reminded me of the fact that when you go to some of these places, you walk in, you see like the discount box, and it's sometimes labeled the as is kind of, box. When you buy it at a cheaper rate, you're going to get it you're accepting that it's got faults in it. And we accept that this is as it is. Sometimes it's a little bit like that in community. When we decide to engage in community, we know that we are going to experience people as they are. We are going to see their mistakes. We are going to see their character flaws. We're going to see their personality quirks. And here's what I've discovered. When I go into community, I want to walk into a place where people are going to see me and accept me as I am. I don't have to perform. I don't have to wear a mask. Now, we do that at first to protect ourselves, but increasingly, hopefully, we're going to find a place of community where we can take our mask off and we can say, hey, this is who I am. This is my quirk. This is my personality distinctives. These are the silly things that I say and do sometimes that I'm not even aware of. And we really want people to be able to accept us and befriend us even with those things. And in community, this is what we're inviting people into. We're saying, hey, come as you are, and we know that you are not a perfect human being, but neither are we. And this is the invitation for us to actually apply what we want others to do to us, and to actually do this for other people. We spoke about this last week when Jesus said, do unto others as you want others to do unto you. The challenge is, though, if we have an idealized view of community or of church, this can actually be a really painful experience for us. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the famous German theologian, he wrote, those who love their dream of a Christian community more than the Christian community itself become destroyers of that Christian community, even though their personal intentions may be ever so honest, earnest, and sacrificial. And it's a really challenging idea. Sometimes we can be so committed to and love the ideal of what we want Christian community to be, more so than actually what Christian community is. The fact that it's real, everyday people who are trying to navigate life and understand faith and learn what it means to follow in the way of Jesus. So when you enter into community, as I've entered into community, the closer you get to people, the more you see people as they really are. And that is scary. It's scary because, I've got to practice being loving and gracious and accepting. But isn't that the very thing that I want other people to do for me? And when we realize that and we have this commitment, it should lower our levels of judgment. And so the invitation that I want to invite us into to be reflecting on is, as we enter into community, we need to remember, as the proverb says, that iron sharpens iron. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. when we actually get involved in other people's lives, we actually learn from one another. We see how other people navigate different situations and circumstances. We hear how other parents are learning to parent their children, and we hear about how other people are navigating relational tensions and challenges. And that kind of relationship and dynamic helps us grow in our lives. It sharpens our own lives. So the thing that I want to encourage us to be thinking about is, what does it mean for us to, first of all, understand what are the different lounge environments we have? To make a commitment to invest in those environments, or at least one of those environments, and to be willing to take a risk if we're a guest or we're new to Goodlife, and to say, okay, I'm going to take the next step and allowing myself to, be known by others. And there's a whole series of steps in place in that. You don't walk up to the very first lounge environment and go, hey, I'm going to tell you my deepest, darkest secrets. That's kind of socially weird, because that takes place as we build relationship and trust develops. And if we find that we can't trust people, then we shouldn't feel any requirement or need to share more than what we're safe to do so in relationship and in community. That's a pretty important thing to understand. So there's 3 things that I want to invite us into in just a moment that I think could really help us do this. But before we do, I want to throw to Greg Forrest, who's going to talk to us for a few minutes about his own experience in lounge spaces and also an example of how we've been doing this at Goodlife.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'm really passionate about community and the lounge environment. I think I've talked about this before, but my wife and I came to Goodlife about 15 years ago looking for community as Sarah was pregnant, we were pregnant, and we were wanting to find a community to raise our family in, a community where Sarah and I were connected and had friends, and where our kids could get connected and have friends. I can't say this was always easy. I remember in the early days, there was communities and lounge environments around us that we wanted to be a part of. And sometimes that was hard, seeing them there and wanting to be part of them. Other times it was great. We got connected in. I remember my wife, Sarah, joined the ladies group on a Thursday morning. But being a early mum, she did find it tough, and loneliness was real for her. And yeah, talk to Helen, our local expert, about that. Loneliness is a real issue, and I think that's the importance of community and getting connected. But anyway, we kept on coming to Goodlife, and we did get connected, and slowly those friendships grew, and we started a home group, and yeah, that's where we found connection. We found people like us and different to us, but on that same journey. We met pretty regularly with our home group, and we found real life and connection there. People that I could surf with and hang out with and have friendship with, and people that we could talk about parenting and those real life issues that are so important about community. Yeah, I'm really passionate about the life that community can bring, but I don't want to say that it's not without its challenges. I would say I'm an ambivert. I didn't even know that was a category. I learned about that recently. I'm not an introvert, not an extrovert. I'm an ambivert. I'm both. And community can challenge that sometimes. You know, there's always that tipping point where you can get a bit too much community, or other people come too early or stay too late, or they parent differently to you. And that can be a real challenge of community, is the differences. But at the same time, that's the power of community, and that each person is unique and different, and that we come together. We've got some things in common that hold us, like this faith, this love of God, and these deep held beliefs and values. But then we come from different perspectives, and we've got so much to offer and challenge each other on and support one another. So that's why we've been working so hard to create lots of new lounge environments for people to get connected. I've been such a beneficiary of community, and I want others to experience that as well. A great example of a lounge environment here at Goodlife, a new one, is our Sunset Sundays. So this was created on a Sunday night as an alternative to just our church service, because we wanted people to not only come and worship God, but actually be united in that, to know each other, to know the person they were sitting next to, and be united by their faith. And we thought these opportunities, we've had some nights down by the pool with live music, and And then more recently, some bonfires up in the top grass car park above Goodlife, where we've had these opportunities to really stop and sit and to get to know the people around us and connect with them and build friendships, and then as part of that, then be united together as we pause in silence and someone shares, and it creates such a closeness and intimacy that doesn't come without that lounge environment. A family who've been really involved in not only creating this space, but actually the benefits of that space is the Edwards family, and we're going to hear a bit more from them now.
We're the Edwards family. I'm Tanya, and this is my husband Lee. And we've got Jesse and Jake at the end, and Marley, and Joe is not here. And so we've been going to Goodlife for about 12 years, and Marley's connected through Goodlife through her kids, helping out at Kids Club, and the boys have all been to youth group. And
we've been helping with the setup, getting the lights set up and setting up chairs and tables, just picnic rugs and things like that, and helping with the fire.
When we put the rugs down particularly, like I know we remember putting down a rug, and I think just you and I sat on it initially, and then one of my friends came down and she grabbed a chair and sat behind us. So, and then there was a couple of younger kids were sort of jumped in front, and then so we're all different ages on the one rug, just enjoying each other's company, and it's about deepening those friendships, isn't it? And meeting new people, and
you get to walk around and meet a bunch of new people, which is pretty good. And it's nice and relaxing with the fire and stuff.
Yeah, makes it easier to make conversations. Yeah.
So on the first night, a mother with two smaller children came along, and they sat down on the rug and were just sort of looking at the fire and stuff, and Tanya wandered over and said, "Hey guys, you can make some s'mores if you like," and their faces just lit up with so much joy, and went and made their s'mores, and they just had a really good time. It was just good to see them experiencing something for themselves in that environment. Whereas I suppose, just coming to church, they'd probably just sit down and colour in or something like that, so it's a little bit more exciting for them.
Like there's been studies shown about engaging with people around a fire. So they say it's the crackling of the fire, actually the noise of that actually lowers people's blood pressure. So when that happens, everyone else gets more relaxed, and so when people are more relaxed, then you have better conversations and more positive conversations, and people feel a lot more engaged.
It's a very inviting place.
Yeah.
People feel more welcome.
I guess it doesn't matter what age group, what you look like, whatever you are, whoever you are, you're always welcome here. Get to know everybody. It's really a nice space.
Because you get s'mores. You get to make s'mores. That's one good reason.
Chocolate, coffee, and s'mores.
Yeah. Get to sit around a fire. Get to hang out with a bunch of cool people, meet new people.
Being with like Mike and Ryan, when they speak, it's a lot more. They're sort of really good communicators, and they're very easy to get along with, very easy to talk to. And it doesn't feel like you're sitting in church, it just feels like a natural conversation around a fire. It breaks down a lot of barriers between what church is about. So some people that I've brought to church in the past, that singing worship songs, sitting in a row of chairs is very foreign when they're not used to that. But when you come to a space like a Sunset Sunday, it's very comfortable.
Well, that's pretty inspiring, and that's a great reason why we need to make sure that as a community, we're creating new lounge environments all the time for different groups of people, for different seasons of life, and realizing that when we make a make a commitment to invest in them, it has massive value and benefit for those who will come along to those, but also has great benefit for us because we increase our chances of finding friends and experiencing long-term community. One of the long-term benefits of this is, as we move from being a guest to moving into lounge spaces where we experience friendship and community, we may one day be able to express the benefit of this in the way that I read of this particular story of a guy called John. He writes, "One of the most important moments of my spiritual life was when I sat down with a longtime friend and I said, I don't want to have any secrets anymore. I told him everything I was most ashamed of. I told him about my jealousies, about my cowardice, how I've hurt my wife with my anger. I told him about my history with money and my history with sex. I told him about some deceit and some regrets that have kept me up at night. I felt vulnerable because I was afraid that I was going to lose connection with him, but much to my surprise, he did not even look away when I shared with him about my life. I'll never forget his next words. John, he said, I have never loved you more than I love you right now. The very truth about me that I thought would drive him away became a bond that actually drew us closer together as friends. He then went on to speak to me about secrets that he had been carrying. If I keep part of my life secret from you, you may tell me that you love me. But inside, I think that you would not love me if you knew the whole truth about me. I can only receive love from you to the extent that I am known by you." This is John Ortberg, the author of many books on spiritual formation. When I read that, I remember thinking, I want that too. And as a matter of fact, I have some friends in my life that I've been able to, over many years, form the kind of level of trust and relationship with that I can also tell them anything. And I don't fear that they're going to reject me. I know that they are for me. But the thing about that level of friendship is that at some point, we had to take a risk. We had to take a risk to actually establish that environment, establish that friendship, take the time to invest in, going out for coffees or turning up to social events and inviting people over and creating the opportunity to actually get to know people. And for some of us, we desire what I've just read and we say, man, I want that in my life. But we've got to realize that doesn't happen automatically. Sometimes that takes months and years. Sometimes that happens really quick for some people. But the reality is it's the next step that's most important for us. So if you're listening to this today and you're wondering, well, what is my next step? What I want to encourage you as a church is, with the commitments that I've also made in this, is this. First of all, we have to make a commitment to invest in messy community. Sometimes when we say, hey, let's invest in community, we think, yeah, that sounds great. Let's invest in community where there's no problems, where there's no fallout, where everyone's just super easy to get along with, where we don't have to deal with anybody else's personality quirks. The fact that someone, laughs too loud or talks too much and we never get a chance to talk, or the fact that someone's a bit more of a gossip, or, someone's got some, character flaw in their life that you think, oh gosh. And the reality is, we don't have control over that dynamic. That is the very real risk. But in church community, we've got to make sure that we move past just the Sunday service environment to actually getting involved in the very reality of life. And when we do and we understand, I'm going to make that commitment to invest in what is really messy community, that actually becomes a profound gift to other people. It's a gift that I'm going to give myself because that's how I want other people to, that's what I want to be invited into. But it's also a gift to say, if I'm going to make this commitment, maybe others would be willing to risk and take that faith step of saying, I'm going to invest into that too. So there are 3 things that I want to encourage us as we wrap this up to make a commitment to. And the first is, let's make a commitment to be accepting, where the posture that we walk into any lounge environment with is, I am going to accept that there will be people here that they're going to come as is. They're going to come and I don't want them to have a mask on. I want them to be true to themselves, because if I accept them as they are, they may accept me as I am. So that's the first thing. I want to accept people. I don't want to judge people. The second thing is, I want to model authenticity. We need to make a commitment to that. I don't want to walk in and be fake to the people. I don't want to tell everyone I've got this most amazing family and we never have a fight in our marriage and I'm just the most perfect role model dad who never gets upset with his kids, and that's just not the reality. I want to be able to say, yeah, I struggle with that too, and we haven't got it right, and let's journey together. This is what it means to model authenticity. And the third thing is making a commitment to journey towards Christ-like transformation. The reality is that God accepts us as we are, but he makes a commitment by the power of the Holy Spirit to transform us into the likeness and the way of Jesus. And that's what we're about in this faith community at Goodlife. We're saying, hey, let's go on the journey together. Let's accept us as we are, like God does. Let's model authenticity, but let's make a commitment to say, hey, let's journey. Let's, link arms and let's go together towards being transformed in the way of Jesus. Because the character faults in my life, the parts of my life that don't look like Jesus, I want people to not run away from me in community. I want people to journey with me and say, hey, let's journey together. Let's encourage one another. Let's stand with each other as we try to navigate what it means to grow in the radical way of Jesus and his love. So I hope that encourages you today. I hope that you will be able to pray and reflect and say, God, what are you inviting me into? Which one of those commitments then is most important to me? And what does it mean for me to play my part at Goodlife in helping guests in our foyer move to the lounge room and find friendship and find community? Next week, we're going to talk about what it looks like to be in the kitchen around the table and what it means to do life together as family on mission as the team. So God bless you. Have a wonderful week.
Set your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his
Thank you for joining us this morning for online church. We always love to hear from you, so feel free to contact us with the links below. I hope you have a great week, and I hope I see you around the center.